Is guilt good? Some people think so. Some people think that you need guilt to be a better human being, to make sure that you're doing the right things all the time. And today we're going to kind of look at that, how guilt works, and if it's really what you need to be your best. Hi, I'm Brett, your favorite shrink, and welcome back to another episode of My 5 Minds. This is where we're learning about systems, or systemology with a P. And in systems, what we're doing is we're figuring out how the brain works. It's a new neuropsychology that looks at the systems that are going on inside your head and helping you be better, do better, and feel better by understanding how these systems all work. Let me tell you a story today about Mitch. Mitch comes in and he's kind of struggling with some of the things that we're talking about. He's a little confused, a little unsure. Because we're talking about one of the first principles of systems is that who you are, your soul, your spirit, your being is perfect. I don't work with a mentality like we do in most psychology that says you're broken, that you're suffering with a chemical imbalance in your brain. And we got to fix that brokenness, the broken thoughts, the negative thinking. We got to fix all that so you can be the person you want to be. Nope. With systems, we don't do that. With systems, we start with a different belief. And the belief is that you are awesome, that you're amazing, that you're perfect right now, that you're good. And the part of you that's good, it's your spirit, it's your soul. At your core, you are good. And that's where we begin with the premise in systems. And maybe if you're bad, you need a different system. And with systems, we start with this idea that you are good. And Mitch was struggling with that. He was having trouble because in his belief system and in what he knew and grew up with, he felt like guilt was a good thing. Guilt helped you do right. Guilt helped you make the right choices. Guilt helped you be the person that you wanted to be. Because when you would do bad things, you'd feel bad. And that feeling bad would help you to be good. Make sense? But it doesn't work. You know it doesn't work. I know it doesn't work because we still do things that we don't want to do, don't we? And the things that we do want to do, we can't get ourselves to do. Well, the reason for that is because this philosophy we have doesn't really play, doesn't really work. And so we started to look at this belief system that he has, and because he was an artist, because he was creative, what I wanted him to do was to use his right neocortex to help him create a picture, an image of this voice of guilt. And I wanted him to see and hear and listen to this guilt so he could better understand it. And so he pictured this guy, and kind of a churchy guy, because this felt like a religious or churchy kind of belief system that he'd grown up with. And this churchy guy told him really clearly that feeling bad is good. Feeling bad helps you be good and do good. And if you stop feeling bad, if you started feeling good about who you are, then you wouldn't try. Then you wouldn't do anything, and you wouldn't try to be a better person. Well, the problem with that psychology is that from a base brain point of view, what ends up happening is that we tend to avoid thinking. We tend to avoid thinking about things that maybe aren't good, things that don't produce us good results. And so what happens is when I'm acting out in some way, I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, the only way I can do it is to turn off my brain and just go into this autopilot mode. That doesn't help me change behaviors. That just kind of promotes the behavior. So what we got to do is we got to look at this part of our brain that is telling us to feel bad in order to feel good. Now, the intention, I think, is right. The intention is, I want to be a good person. But the method is wrong, because the method just has me avoid. Avoid thinking, avoid being conscious, avoid being aware, and it just has me turn off. If I'm going to do something wrong, I'm just going to turn off my brain. Now, there's a better association that we need to create, and you can check that better association out in a video we just did called Total Relapse. That helps you understand that if you really want to get your base brain to shift, changing your thinking brain isn't going to do it. What you got to do is change the association in your base brain. As your base brain begins to associate pain with a behavior, it then will avoid the behavior. If we associate pain with thinking about a behavior, which is different, then what we do is we avoid thinking about the behavior, which is what we get. So here we have to help him change. And what I want to do is help him get rid of this negative voice that you have, I have, we all have. And now here's the problem. Because you cannot, by one of the rules of systems or systemology, one of the rules is you can't kill or destroy any part of you. That doesn't happen. And yet that's what we try to do with this sense of shame or guilt, is that we either indulge it and we feel bad, which then causes us to act out, not good, or we try to push it away. We try to ignore it. We try to delete it because we don't want to feel bad. But what that does is it puts this part of ourselves deeper into the subconscious. And then what happens is we tend to act out unconsciously. So we're damned if we do, and we're damned if we don't. If we focus on this negative part of ourselves that says guilt is good, then we're going to reinforce it. If we repress it, then it's just going to go in the shadows and act out unconsciously. So that's not going to work. So we had a third choice. We had to deal with this new part, with this part of himself that's becoming conscious in a new way. And so again, we went back to the beginning. And I had Mitch imagine, what does this part of you look like? And he saw him as kind of a priesty guy, kind of a holy man. And so we gave him a name, and we told him that he is the bishop of the Church of Eternal Unhappiness. The Church of Eternal Unhappiness teaches that for you to be happy, you have to be unhappy. Because that's the doctrine of the Church of Eternal Unhappiness. And by seeing it that way, by reframing this bishop in a new way, it gave us a chance to treat him with a little humor, treat him with a little laughter. And then what I had him do was I had him imagine that bishop, stern and strict and strong and righteous, and give him a hug. Give him a hug. Love that bishop. Give him a hug and tell him how much he appreciates that he's trying to help, that he's trying to teach, that he's trying to correct. And his intention, totally good. But the method, not so good. And again, by doing this, by allowing him to be conscious of the bishop of the Church of Eternal Unhappiness and loving that part of himself, not repressing or not indulging, but by loving that part of himself, he's able to relax and create flow with that part of himself, which is what we needed. Now, homework for him, homework for you, is I want you to practice. I want you to practice listening to that voice. Begin, one, to recognize the voice that says guilt is good. Feeling bad is the best way to be good. I want you to recognize that voice in yourself, because we all have him. He's all there. And when you hear him, and as you hear him, I want you to love him. I want you to give him a big hug too. And I want you to let him know how much you appreciate him trying to help you be good. Now, if this was helpful for you, again, I want you to like. I also want you to subscribe so you can learn more about you and about the systems that are working in your brain. I'm Brett, your favorite shrink, and you've been watching My 5 Minds.